Right, welcome everybody. Thanks for attending. I just wanted to, talk today about fatherhood, seeing as though it's on Sunday is Father's Day,
hmm
and a lot of our men that we support are fathers, as am I, and as are you two. So yeah, nice. But yeah, so I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Jeff. I'm the Group and Community Development Lead here at Survivors Manchester. I'm also the thematic lead for fatherhood, um, which is a new thing that we started at the organisation. Each member, as you both know, have their own thematic lead that you take lead on and find out information and things like that, and helpful support for whatever your thematic lead is. Um, so yeah, I just again wanted to thank you both for coming along. Maybe you can introduce yourselves and then we'll have a bit of a chat. So the idea of this is just to have a bit of a chat about what it's like to be a father, some of the difficulties, some of the brilliant things about being a dad, what's helpful, what's not, if there's any services out there that may be of help or you've accessed or not accessed and are there, that kind of thing. And we'll take it from there. So Simon, are you all right to introduce yourself and then
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm Simon. I'm one of the therapists here at Survivors Manchester. And I have obviously I'm a dad of a little boy who's been going to be going to school soon. So that's a sort of a new change that's coming up for our family. Um, and yeah, it's just nice to sort of have a little chat with other dads and stuff about what it's like to be a dad, but also kind of thinking about the people we work with as well. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Brill? Yeah, cool. I always get that with these microphones. I feel like I'm on stage on tour or something, like a doing a
Yeah.
but I'll let Duncan explain why we are doing this chat as we are. But and
Okay.
introduce yourself, Duncan. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, will do. Yeah, so I'm Duncan. I'm one of the ISVA team here at Survivors Manchester. I'm the thematic lead for domestic abuse and violence, which again is like quite a new thing for us all to have thematic leads. But it ties into a lot of the other work that we do and a lot of the other themes that we're covering. Yeah, the reason we're doing it this way is because of childcare needs from my side. So I'm currently working home office at the moment to kind of help that side of things. But yeah, looking forward to having that conversation about
Not the actual
being
Home
dads.
Office though. Not the
Not
actual
the
Home
home
Mm.
Office in the
office.
government. Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
no,
let's
not
just
not
clear
in
that
the
up.
government offices. Yeah, yeah, just in a home office. But yeah, it's good to get together and I think have a chat about these things. It's something maybe I don't think necessarily take for granted, but it's as much as we know a lot of the lads that we support are dads. How often do we talk about that? And I
Of
think
course. Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
great
definitely.
opportunity to get started.
Yeah, and I think there's some of the things that I've found with supporting men who are dads and not dads is some of the men that we speak to because of what's happened.
hmm
Um, they feel like they can't be a dad or they don't want to be a dad, and it could also be who the perpetrator is that may impact them, maybe not wanting to be a dad as well. Um, so yeah, there's lots of different reasons, but I can only speak for myself. So as a survivor dad, so I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and as a survivor dad, there's lots of difficulties within that. Um, and yeah, I guess boundaries is one of the things that I find really difficult. Um, Boundaries for myself, but then instilling boundaries for my son, I find that really difficult. Um, but that's something I'm working on, something that I know. Um, and also as well, as a childhood survivor, I sometimes feel like my mentality is quite childish, childlike, and that's something I'm trying to address and work on myself. Um, and hopefully, in time, when I can work on those things and slightly change those childish behaviours to more adult ones, because I am still learning to be an adult. I know I'm nearly 43, but I still am, and I'm trying to do my best. And I see that in a lot of the lads that we support, and it's really nice to see that they are trying and they know the difficulties they face. They know some things that um, they're not great at, but they're working and looking at that to address those things. And yeah, that's the kind of conversations we do have in these safe rooms and art groups sometimes, or the creative writing groups. And I'm sure might happen at an ISVA session or a therapist session as well. You might have those conversations. But yeah, boundaries is one thing that I find difficult. Also, I'm a dad to be again, so I'm expecting a daughter in October. So yeah, I'll be a dad again soon. So that's difficult sometimes to. It's great. It's great news. I love it. And but again, it's can be quite overwhelming, and sometimes for men a trigger into you know you're bringing a child into the world, and your experience of being a child in the world has been damaged, and again I become protector in that and feel protective of the child coming into the world. So again, it will send me head in a spin, but I've got people around me that I can look to and talk to for support. So yeah, but I love being a dad. It's the best job in the world. I love it. I've got a 5-year-old son that is brilliant. His mum's really good at the food and the cooking and all that. She's really good. We're separated, but I guess we've worked it out that we've got that shared care or shared time. So yeah, we just do our best, and there's like that old cliche. There's no manual for parenting. There's no manual for being a father. But I guess for me, I can only talk about my experience as being raised in a family home, and I guess I can describe my sort of childhood as what's the word, like a feral cat, really. So I wasn't really. It didn't seem to be um, any boundaries or raised. It was lots of computer games, and you go and play on your computer. We're going to come down here and we're going to do our thing. You go up there and stay away, kind of thing. And that's kind of how I remember. Not all of my child, but most part. Teenage years, as many children are. They're playing Xboxes and playing video games, electronic devices, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how I was, back then. And I guess some of that was difficult. So I don't really want my son to be doing those same things. Although I do appreciate that even in school now, electronic devices are sort of the main thing that they use to teach sometimes. And we don't have all the materials we had back in the 90s. It's we have laptops and iPads and YouTube and stuff like that. So yeah.
There's almost a sense of inevitability with it, isn't there? I think in terms of, because I'm a little bit younger than yourself, Jeff, and but I remember that growing up, computer games were kind of just about coming out, and that was what we did with the friends. If we weren't kind of like playing Tig in the street and God knows what else, but we sat around our mates' houses playing video games. It was just we left to our own devices in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
There wasn't a huge amount of interaction.
Yeah.
I guess with my parents, not necessarily in a bad way, but my dad worked full time, mum worked full time. We had the evenings and weekends together, but it wasn't maybe as interactive as, for example, I am with my children. So I've got two twin girls, who are nearly one. So yeah, a lot of what you're saying there in terms of kind of like you're not wanting your kids to go through the same emotion situations. I think outside of being a survivor, I think a lot of people feel that way. You hear a lot of people talk as parents that they want something better for their kids. And I think potentially me as a non-survivor, but having spoken to a lot of survivor dads, that feeling of I don't want them to go through what I've gone through. So that protective element is like
definitely.
almost doubled or multiplied than what you'd be as a normal in inverted commas dad. But yeah, I think it's that sense of inevitability. Things are going to happen regardless of what we do as parents. I think is quite strong in me as a dad. I'm thinking about when they're in the teenage years and they're not even one yet. But that's the kind of where my head goes with things.
Of course.
That apprehension. And I obviously want them to have the best life possible. But there's a certain element of that as they get older and older, where they've got to be allowed to do and live and take risks and
definitely.
I
things
think
like that.
Yeah, no, I think it's something that I've definitely experienced. It's one of the challenges is you want to obviously protect your children, but you also don't want to make them feel like they can't take risks or can't go out and do things because like you say, at some point they'll be older and they'll be doing those things for themselves. You want them to have a sense of how they best make decisions for themselves, I suppose. But I think with my experiences of when my son was very young, he was a bit unwell, like when he was first born, and again, I think that often comes up occasionally when like I was saying about him going to school. I know realistically he's fine and he's quite a confident little boy, and he'll make friends and stuff. But I think from probably those early experiences of him not being very well and needing a lot of a bit of extra support,
Mm-hmm.
there is that kind of worry about, oh, is he going to be okay, or how's he going to find it and stuff. And you put a lot of trust, I guess, in other people. When they're very small,
Yeah.
they're with you a lot of the time. But as they get older, inevitably, we're all working parents as well. You have other people involved in their care, and I think that can be a difficult. I sometimes find that difficult. And I'm sure some of the people we support find that difficult. Putting that trust in other people at times. And again, yeah, I think both of you reflecting on your own childhood. I think as a parent, I think that it often comes up a lot for me as well. Sort of as my son gets older, kind of different things come up for me about probably what it was like for me when I was that age. So maybe being a little bit like yes, playing being with I have siblings, but maybe not having much of a parental oversight, I suppose, and wanting that to be different for my son. But at the same time, I think I can often lean into being too much and not allowing him to really go out and do his own thing, really. So it's I think it's just a constant as a parent, or my experience as a parent is you're always kind of thinking, like, is this the right thing? Is that the right thing? And like you're saying, Jeff, there's no manual, but I think it can be very tempting to look for one.
Yeah,
to,
definitely.
to find the manual and
look for that idiot's guide. But no, it's
Yeah.
it's really true. I think it's all about being adaptable, because you know uh, with my children, they weren't ill per se, but because they were premature when they were born. Because often what happens with twins, they were in the like neonatal intensive care unit for a couple of weeks, and which was really really tough going. Not because they were particularly poorly, just because the sounds, the smells. There were a lot of other poorly children in there, and obviously you're there for your children, but I think you can't not empathise with others as well. So it does have a profound impact on you. A child being ill at any point of their lives is, whether they could be adults, we could be older adults, and find it really difficult. But I think especially when they're small, when they're very little, um, there's so much of it responsibility is really with you, that that care, because they will do silly things. They'll try and jump out your arms, and it's not because they're trying to hurt themselves, just because they don't understand. So it's that allowance, isn't it, for that flexibility to be able to go, right, okay, well, now you're at this age or this stage or whatever, I'm going to let you do that a bit more. Like my girls are nearly walking now, and they're doing that age old thing of bumping heads and falling over, and for the most part they get back up and dust themselves off, so to speak. But there's times when it's like, oh my god, what's happened? And there's nothing serious. It's just that you're having to let that go a little bit, to say allow them to make that mistake, allow them to have a little tumble, not in a way to hurt themselves, but in a way to kind of learn how to not do that next time. So it's tricky, really tricky.
Yeah. I find myself sometimes putting a lot of pressure on myself, or maybe overcompensating because I don't see my son every day, which is really painful. It's really difficult, and I may be overcompensating, treating him more. Maybe he knows as well that Daddy is the one. Oh yeah, that's the fun Daddy, and he knows. But I do try to instill some boundaries and not let him. What's the word? Overrun me. So I do have to instill some boundaries and say, that's not, that's too much TV now. Let's play in the garden, or let's do this or whatever. But one thing I have found is, what I find really difficult. I find like role play type games really difficult to do. Dylan's at the age where he wants to, like, what's the like. I don't know, cops and robbers type stuff, and I can do it for a bit, but then it gets a little bit. Whoa. And as a single dad, it's hard. And I was speaking to Simon on a break before and talking about it's nice when adults are with children, the adults are chatting and being social, and the kids are all playing together. I think that's a really great environment for children to be in, so they know they're safe and they're playing amongst the sort of children. But sometimes I find that really hard, even if it's like Lego and we're playing goodies and baddies with Lego, and it's like, right, Daddy, you be the baddies, I be the goodies, and we've got to do this and we've got to do that. And I find it quite tiresome, but I do try and do it a little bit. And I guess it's finding those things that you both enjoy. So Uno, we've been playing a card game called Uno. He loves that. Reading, he loves reading. He loves learning. I've been playing things like Hangman with him, so doing, different foods, So I always try and do these things, even at a restaurant or something like that, rather than having a phone out or something like that. I'll always take a doodle pad with me, and I've
I
got
love that.
yeah, I've got loads of doodle pads at home that I can look back and go, I remember that day because we went there, or that's Playtown because we draw a map of Playtown and that's where the slide was and stuff like that, and we'll get all those things out. And they not only do they bring back memories of brilliant times, but it's just a fun thing to do, so creative and just
It's
better than sitting there with an iPad or as your game.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that's it, Jeff. You were saying before about like being as an adult now and being dads now, sometimes being quite childlike, and I think it's an old kind of stereotype, but in some ways I think it's elements of it are true that men never grow up and we are kind of big kids at heart. But I think when you're interacting with children, I think it's only since having, even though I've got like plenty of I've got godkids, I've got I've got friends, I've got kids and that kind of stuff. So it's not like it's completely brand new. But it was only when I got my own children, I had my own children, that I really that value of interaction, and that interaction isn't always necessarily like what you say. There's no manual to interaction. Like I can remember growing up, and my mum used to do like she made like all these like word pieces of card, and I used to make words up. So I was reading from a very early age. I was very lucky like that. And I always my sister still got them, and I think to myself, when the kids are old enough, I'm gonna try and utilize that because I got so much benefit from it. But it may be that they don't, and they don't
Yeah.
learn that way, and that's something hard to let go of sometimes.
Yeah,
So I
that's
don't
right.
think it's you should be too hard on yourself that you don't do the role play interaction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably something I'm quite good at because I'm
Right.
a bit daft like that, and I'm still very
Cool.
childlike in that respect. Doing silly voices, and I've done that with the kids from when they were far too young to understand anything I was saying to them. But that's me. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't be as comfortable doing like say doodling, not because I don't do
Right.
it
Yeah.
or I can't do it, but I don't
Yeah.
particularly have an aptitude towards that or a skill.
Yeah.
Whereas I've seen
Right.
your doodles and your art, so
Yeah.
it's just different ways. It's not
Yeah.
there's no right way. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just different.
It's
That's
almost
good.
using your own strengths, I suppose, isn't it? About
Yeah.
what's good at what you're good at. And I think I see with sometimes I try, so I've a day off a week with my son, which I love, but then sometimes I've put myself under a lot of pressure, like you were saying before, Jeff, to make it a really fun day or make it really
Mm.
engaging. And then sometimes I will organize lots of things, and then he's maybe not that into it, or he's
Yeah.
quite tired because he's been at nursery all week, and he does want to sit and watch a program. And I think it's almost I can be pushing him too much, and actually not really noticing actually, oh, he's knackered today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's maybe stay in
Yeah.
and watch something. And if we're watching it together, or if he does, he does play a game on a like a device. If I'm there with him, talking to him about it and saying, oh, what's you doing now? And, it's more of an interaction. I think I always try and think about that element of it, as well as like you say, putting those boundaries about, well, let's not just watch it all day or play on your whatever
Yeah.
devices all
It's
day.
having the difference between being passive and being
Yeah.
active, isn't it? And that's the thing. I think passive activities, because we did the same with the girls when they're growing up. And the difficulty with twins is if you've got one child that is kicking off, you can generally sort them out if there's a couple of you to do it, or even if you're on your own, it's a bit easy. You've got two doing it exactly the same time. You find ways and methods to deal with that. And one of the ways we've done it is we have this silly thing that we put on YouTube, which is called Hey Bear, and it's just dancing through. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it is like hypnosis for the girls if they're absolutely distraught with
Yeah.
teething. Bit of Hey Bear on, it saved our lives a few times, and
Yeah.
the other thing we have is blooming Do Re Mi from Sound of Music.
Okay.
They absolutely adore it. So the amount of times you'll hear me and my wife singing Do Re Mi, obviously very badly from my side, but it's you do what works. I think we
Yeah.
do put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially as dads, to do everything right. And I think for
Yeah.
me, slowly learning, and don't 20 years down the line, I might have a different type of hindsight, but slowly learning that it's less about that being supreme quality. It's just about spending quality time.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And I think it's a hard learning curve because
absolutely.
we could do this for 10 years. Look back 10 years later, in a way you could project yourself into the future and go, right, I've done 10 years at now, and I'll come back to the past and go, right, I'll do it correctly. But you're not. You're gonna get things wrong. The
Yeah.
Yeah,
kids aren't gonna do things you want them to do. It's
Yeah.
and that's probably the sometimes the hardest thing for me is knowing that actually I'll probably do some things I won't get quite right, and it's
Yeah.
that kind of that good enough parenting, I guess, that gets talked about, is that you're not going to be a perfect parent, but are you a good enough parent? Are you doing like enough of the sorts of things that we're talking about? And yeah, like I say, I think sometimes when I'm trying to be perfect, I actually end up just getting frustrated because
Yeah. Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't work out the way I'm sort of envisaging,
Yeah.
the perfect kind of day together with my son,
Yeah.
or whatever, or the perfect family day, or whatever it is. And I think that, yeah, it's sort of knowing. I try and in moments when I'm thinking, when I'm not too kind of not putting too much pressure on myself. It's like, am I giving my son just enough of
Yeah.
what he needs, and
Yeah.
that, if I've made mistakes, which of course I'll have made, he's gonna know what to do, or he's gonna find his own way to figure stuff out. Because I guess I've done that as I've grown up and stuff. It's
Yeah.
and I know my parents certainly weren't perfect. I think they're probably good enough in a lot of ways, but it's that level. And I think, again, for my own stuff, there's a lot of expectation. I think that's the big thing. And I think as a dad, that's probably multiplied, because there is that sense of, obviously, your child is quite vulnerable, it's quite small,
Yeah.
and so on. So, and you speak to other people, or nursery gets in touch with you, or
Mm.
you're the person they'll call, you're the person put down as their emergency contact, so there is that sense of there is a pressure to it, of course there is.
Hmm.
But it's I guess for me, it's about how I try not to turn that into a pressure about just everything that I do, rather than just accepting, yeah, I'll get some things wrong sometimes, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I was just thinking about. I was just wondering if you two have had any time apart from your child or children, um, and if you have, how have you communicated with your child or children? If you have had that time apart, maybe you haven't had any.
Um.
I had, sorry,
Sorry.
Dan.
Sorry. No, you're gone. Yeah.
I've probably had, so I guess working here, I work in the evening, so often I won't see my son before he goes to bed. And that can sometimes be a bit hard, and so often we have a little chat sometimes, if I can, usually a video call or something. I think that's quite nice.
Brilliant.
Um, and other times we've been apart. Well, I actually had a time when I was away for a whole week, and I didn't communicate with him, because where I was going, I couldn't take my phone or anything with me. And that felt quite difficult,
Sure.
knowing that I was choosing to do that as well. It wasn't like
Yeah. Yeah.
no one
Yeah.
was making me, but I was doing something that felt right to me, to go on this retreat that I went on.
Right.
And so I had no contact with the outside world, basically, for that period of time. And I think it's definitely, um, and my wife understands this, I definitely found this harder with my son than I did with my wife. And I think it's because I knew my wife would understand. Like, she had a concept of what was going on.
Yeah.
So this was about maybe a year ago, and but my son didn't. And as much as I explained it to him, I don't think he really understood. And so that was quite hard. But on reflection, having that time apart, you really notice more what you value. And I think it helped me kind of not trying to be maybe quite so perfect or put a lot of expectation on myself. So it was a useful thing, but I definitely felt it really difficult. And obviously, Jeff, you mentioned like your own situation. I think I do feel very lucky to sort of know, obviously I see my son pretty, every day, by and large. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, nice one for sharing that, Simon. Cheers.
Yeah, it's. I think mine's a very different experience again to Simon's and yourself, Jeff. The separation I've had from my children has been in the very beginning when they were in the NICU unit. I could go and visit. I was very lucky because we were very close to the. There was a transition where previously as a dad you couldn't go in. There's an idea that birthing partners couldn't have got in, so it was very close to the bone where I would have been present at my children's birth. I was very lucky and it was amazing, but I was limited to visiting hours. So there's a period of time where I had to go home after they were born at a certain time, and I could only come within certain times, and that was really hard, especially when they were tiny, because as much as they're in the best hands, it's that element I think of being a parent is in like I'm the best person to be there. But that wasn't so bad. Spoke to my wife via like WhatsApp video calls and text and stuff. And then since then, it's we do our kids do go to the grandparents a fair bit, and they normally try and give us at least one night off, so to speak. Um, and that's at least once a week, which is really good for us. It gives us a bit of kind of quality time together. Um, but we laugh about it because we were up every morning very early with the children before the kids to get everything ready, and then even on those days when we don't have to get up in the morning because the kids aren't here, we like around and go into each other. Oh, I really miss them. Oh, I really want to be here. And it's like I think what you're saying there, Simon. I think having that quality time to yourself as an individual, not even as a couple,
Yeah.
I think is really, really important.
I agree.
But it's quite difficult to do sometimes because
Yeah.
it's the pressure to be there and present in jobs to do and so on and so forth. And it's to reconcile that element is quite tricky. I'm not quite got the balance of that yet, but I'm quite early on in this stage of things. But yeah, it's hard not to be around the kids when they're
Yeah.
not there. As
Yeah.
much as you really value that quality
Yeah.
time, it's a bit like,
Yeah.
are they all right? And
Yeah.
we have these video calls with Kay's mum and dad and stuff like that, and it's brilliant because they're very vocal, our children at the moment. So
Yeah.
it's nonsense words, but it's a lot of
Yeah.
like going and running around, well, running, but crawling around really quickly. So it makes me feel part of it, even though I'm not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how we'll deal with anything longer term though, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, that. And yeah, there was a period in COVID where there was 3 months where we didn't really know what was going on with COVID at the time. It was right at the start, and we thought it was best because I was still sort of doing a role where I'm out and about in the community and meeting people, and just thought it'd be better and safer for our son to stay with his mum. And yeah, so I used a lot of that time in video calls, reading books to him via video
Oh, that's
calls and
nice.
stuff like that when he was really young, 1.5 sort of stuff. And yeah, even now, on a Saturday, and if I've not got him at the weekend on a Saturday, I'll ring and we've made an arrangement. You kind of make an arrangement, like a parental plan together about how I'm going to communicate, and I guess it almost becomes like a business thing. I know it sounds quite harsh, but it becomes like a business, and you have to do it that way to, for one, keeping it amicable, and also, my son still wants to see me and he has to see me. So yeah, I'll do like a book time with him, read him a few books before bed on a Saturday when I haven't got him. And sometimes now, because it's like, what is it? Facebook Messenger, I think we do it on. And there's loads of like changing this, and you can change the background, so he can turn into Superman or Spider-Man or whatever, or I could be sat in, I don't know, the Dagobah system in Star Wars behind me or something, and we do a lot of that now because he's of that age where he presses his buttons and, oh, look at this, daddy, and so it's quite
Should have
fun
done
and
that
a bit of a
today,
laugh.
Jeff.
Yeah, we could have done that,
Yeah.
couldn't we? We could have done that. Yeah.
Star Wars
Yeah.
theme
Star
background,
Wars.
but
Yeah.
it's. I think this is it. I think technology. We were saying before, I think, weren't we, about technology being not so much a crutch, but worried about it being too much, taking over too much.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's partly because we're of a generation, because we're all roughly of the same age, I think, we're of a generation where we did have computer games, but probably all still played out, played football and TIG and
Yeah.
whatever we did.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems now, at least from a society overview, that kids just sit home all day and playing computer games, and we don't want that. They want that
Yeah.
out and about. But then look at the flip side, this
Yeah.
technology,
It is.
especially during COVID times, it's
Yeah, it's
really
really-
helped people connect.
Definitely.
Yeah,
So
and I guess it's something that think about is during COVID, and obviously not being able to go out, and obviously a lot of stuff was indoors for a couple of years really. So I think probably now we're really keen to get out and do things, particularly the weather is nice at the moment for once in Manchester. But I think kind of what you were talking about, Jeff, with like video calls and stuff. That's so our my son's like grandparents and things are sort of far away, so that's been a way that we keep in touch with them, particularly obviously during COVID when they couldn't visit at all, but even now because they're not around the corner, and I think that's kind of been something at when we were kids, there wouldn't have been anything you could have done about it. You just wouldn't see those people. So there's definitely that benefit, and but it's definitely nice that almost the world's opened up a bit so that children can go out and interact, because I think those interactions, I think, is something that I think obviously will have impacted kids, and I'm sure that any of the people we work with, their parents, they'll have maybe noticed certain things, how it's affected their kids going through that scenario, like it did obviously with all of us, and the anxiety and the worry and things, and how that affects how that's affected children. That as a parent, you can really start to worry about that stuff. I wonder how it's affected them, and you may not know until they're much older, but it's nice that now that things are sort of getting back to sort of a normal way of being, that you do see kids kind of out a bit more, and maybe being kind of, well, of us all being kind of inside, people will start to think value maybe getting outdoors a bit more, because we've all been forced to stay in for so long. So
and also, while we're on the topic of electronic devices and video calling, I guess thank you to whoever funded our sort of laptops and headpieces and all the rest of it, because without that, we forget we wouldn't have been able to keep in touch with the lads that we support and offer any kind of service to them. So it's now become the norm, hasn't it? I guess that there's the option now, isn't there, of online and offline, and hence the same with the groups as well, and therapy. You can have different versions, and people have different options, which is great.
Well, and we all know how important that was for the people we support over that time, that we stay made very clear we're still open as a service, we're still here for people and stuff, because for everyone obviously it was a difficult time.
Can I ask as well, what about food, like for the little ones? I mean, how are you getting on with food and stuff? Because obviously they're going to be at different stages. But my little lad, it's pizza and pasta, pretty much. Pizza and pasta. What else? And Pringles. Loves cheese and
all the
cheese
peas.
Pringles.
All the peas, yeah.
All the peas.
The peas, but doesn't include peas.
No, you don't eat them.
It's probably another area that, again, trying to be perfect and make sure he gets all his fruit and vegetables, but then I sometimes think, have I got all my fruit and veg in today? Exactly. So I think another element I think about as a parent is like, am I looking after myself as well? And it's very it's very challenging, because you obviously put your child first and focus on their needs and stuff, and that's right, but I think sometimes having the energy to do role playing or whatever it is because you need your time for yourself as well. So so when it comes to food, absolutely.
And when it comes role modeling. So if your son or daughter sees you eating Pringles or sees you eat Haribo or drinking Lucozade, they're always going to want some, and they're going to want to do what you're doing. So it's about, and even when I've seen it when they go to kids' parties, someone put out cucumber and carrot sticks and this and that, And I've done that at home. He'll never eat them because I don't eat them, but he'll never eat them.
Yeah.
But because he's seen other kids grabbing them and eating them, and he's like, "Oh, all right then,
Try
I'm
that.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give that a go. I'm having that."
Yeah.
Interesting. What about you,
We're,
Don't?
yeah, we're quite lucky at the moment because we're going through baby-led weaning, which is quite comical to try and explain to grandparents because back in the day it was just a spoon in their mouths, and
Mm.
if you know anything about baby-led weaning, it's basically letting the kids interact with the food in their own way, which
It's
typically leads
a
to
messy job. Yeah.
oh yeah, very much so. I've never seen children make so much mess with shreddies, and
Yeah.
hummus was the worst one. Definitely,
Oh.
that was it was like a face mask, put it that way.
Yeah.
But we're very lucky they'll eat anything. We've tried
Yeah.
them in all sorts. From when we started, we went to Spain recently, and we had tried let them try olives for the first time, and they do this thing where they're very much like things in the mouth and then do this kind of face of
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then put it back in again. So nothing so far
Yeah.
they've rejected, so which
Right.
is amazing.
That's cool.
How long that will last before
Yeah.
we get to the
Good luck.
3P
Yeah.
stage is a
Yeah.
different
Good luck.
matter.
I think
Yeah.
I think that was my experience of my son kind of trying everything and seeming just to eat everything. And we're like, oh, this is great. You know, he's just going to eat everything. And then, yeah, something happens and he's suddenly like, oh, I could say no to things. And I
Yeah.
could choose something else. And I could say, well, I don't want that. I want the thing we had yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it's a different challenge. But yeah, I think both as a family, I think we quite like our food and stuff. So I think it's one thing I is one of the things I probably enjoy the most, perhaps, is in terms of activities like cooking and baking and stuff with my son. And
Cool.
again, going back to what we were talking before about your kind of own strengths and what you enjoy, because I enjoy it. He really enjoys it, and he's into it, and he's asks us to do it. And I know they pick up on your enthusiasm. Whereas if you're trying to make yourself do something you do like, they're going to get a bit bored as well.
Yeah.
So I think that can sometimes be a good way of getting him to try different things. Because if he's made it with me, he's got that sense of like, oh yeah, I made this, and I'm going to eat it and stuff.
I'm not sure my son's going to enjoy sort of like trying to make a pot noodle with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it might be fun taking the lid off. That'd be pretty cool. But no, I'm joking aside. Though. I'm just going to say we've probably got about 3 minutes left. I guess we're going to wrap it up a bit. But I just wanted to say first of all, thank you both for doing this, and it's been really good and fun, and
It's been
and
good
we should
fun,
do
yeah.
more. Yeah,
Yeah,
and also just wanted to end on sort of like, yeah, what do you think's like the best part about being a dad, or your favourite moment about being a dad, maybe, or something like that? And Simon, and then Dunk. Yeah.
I think the best part of being a dad is almost like you're seeing the world again through a kid's eyes. Like when you do have that moment when you take off your parent hat and you're just with your child and you're doing stuff, and and he's coming up and showing you things, and he's so excited about it. And you're kind of seeing everything in the world for the first time, and it reminds you what it was like when you were a kid. And I think that's my favorite part. I think.
Yeah. Cool. Nice one. Cheers, Simon. Dunk.
Well, Simon stole my answer, so
Okay.
but no, I was going to say I think it's seeing the world anew, but I think Simon actually encapsulated it a lot better. It is seeing the world again through those children's eyes. How everything's amazing, and I want to pick this up and put it in my mouth because not because it's dangerous, but because it's just something brand new. That sense of novelty about the world is really fun to watch. But I think on top of that, it's just really nice. I feel like I've grown up a lot in a way, but I've also feel like I've rekindled my own childhood in a little way. It's almost like a little way of me doing it again. Not that mine was particularly bad by any means. I'm not ever going to pretend that. But there's certain things I would have done differently, and I will want to do differently for my children. So I think it's nice to be able to say, if it's taken to somewhere I used to go when I was a kid, it isn't just them like looking all because most of the time you're taken to the zoo and they're just like, right, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, so let's play with this label on the trolley instead. But as they're getting older, you're noticing more and more of them actually looking at the world and going, "That's actually quite interesting. I want to do something like I want to play with that." And I think it's just wonderful seeing
cool.
that.
I think for me, I I noticed my son was in reception. He was doing lots of drawings because obviously we've just had the Jubilee and London and the Royals and all that kind of stuff. And he's drawing pictures, and Wembley Stadium was colouring that in. So lots of like London type things, and yeah. So in the half term holidays that had just gone, I took him to a trip to London, and all those things that he's seen in the paper and coloured in, he's now seeing in real, Big Ben and stuff like that. And it was fascinating because he was telling me where everything is and what that is, and I loved it. I thought it was great. It's fascinating. So that was a really great moment for me as a dad. I think that's a highlight so far. And we usually go away, and all the pictures we take, we go to a charity shop. We get one of those little books, because I don't really put loads of stuff on Facebook or social media about me and my son, what we get up to, but I usually like to keep it physical form. So yeah, we'll rip up an old book and put those photos into the book and draw some text about what we did, where we were, what was that, and I like that. That's a good little thing we do. Yeah, so it's been brilliant. And also, I just wanted to say, so any dads that are listening or want to comment, feel free to comment on this. Or, so for example, if there's any services that you think men should access or can access as a dad, I know of a few services that are helpful. But if there's anything that you maybe need as a dad, I know I've struggled in the past for help, with like heating in the flat and things like that. And, I'm not receiving benefits, so I'm not entitled to certain things. Help with maybe going to court and access to your children and seeing your children, things like that. But yeah, anything you think of that you feel might be of help to yourself or other people, or the dads, then yeah, feel free to pop some questions in the chat or comments, and we'll look to try and help and support as best we can. And I just want to wish all the dads out there and those dads who are not, technically dads, as stepdads or those role model dads, a very happy Father's Day on Sunday. So that's me. And yeah, thanks again, lads. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. And great.
Great.
All right. Have a good Father's Day.
You too. Take care.
See you later.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.